It is with profound gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility that I, on behalf of members of the Joint Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, as well as the House of Representatives Committee on Human Rights, welcome our special guest of honor, His Excellency Senator Ahmad Ibrahim Lawa, PhD, CON, the President of the Senate, ably represented by our Deputy Majority Leader, as well as Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, also ably represented, to the occasion of the joint public hearing on the National Human Rights Commission Act, Cap N46, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, sir, thank you for honoring our invitation to declare the public hearing open. I wish to also warmly thank all principal officers of both the Senate and the House of Representatives, as well as all our colleagues here present. I thank also our revered stakeholders, members of the public, and ladies and gentlemen of the press. You are all welcome, and we appreciate your esteemed presence at this public hearing, in spite of your busy schedules. Consequently, I wish to state, for the avoidance of doubt, that today's exercise is a joint public hearing between the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters and the House of Representatives Committee on Human Rights. The decision by the Joint Committee to conduct this joint public hearing is in recognition of the fact that even though Nigeria operates a bicameral legislature, we often collaborate and synergize with each other in order to have identical legislative process in the passage of proposed bills. As a result, this joint public hearing is intended not only to save time, but also to fast-track the legislative processes in order to avoid any unforeseeable complexity that may arise should the two chambers decide to act independent of each other on any particular piece of legislative proposal. The underlying purpose of conducting this joint public hearing is to ensure that we have a common ground on every aspect of the proposed bill, so that identical reports on the bill will be presented and considered in either of the chambers. This will no doubt minimize the tendency for any discrepancy that may give rise to setting up of conference committee by the respective chambers to resolve and/or harmonize areas of differences thereafter. Certainly, joint public hearing is an effective mechanism used in the expeditious dispensation of legislative activities in order to meet the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. May I, at this juncture, crave your indulgence to comment briefly on the intent of the bill in order to set the tone for today's deliberations. The bill, in a nutshell, seeks to repeal and reenact the National Human Rights Commission Act 2010 as altered. The purport behind this legislative proposal is to, among other things, reposition and streamline the institutional framework of the Commission by strengthening its capacity to conduct investigations on human rights issues, as well as expand the scope of the Commission's operation generally. In the same vein, specific provisions were made in the bill to provide for the establishment of the National Human Rights Fund in the national budget, and as well provide effective means of sustaining contribution to the fund, whereby non-governmental organizations and multinational corporations are expected to make remittances accordingly. The initiative for providing for the fund is in line with global best practices as it relates to human rights institutions worldwide. The fund, no doubt, will facilitate unhindered and seamless discharge of the statutory functions of the Commission in line with the Paris Principles. This is important in view of the rising spate of insecurity, sexual and gender-based violence, and other unforeseen human rights violations in the country, which cannot be contemplated and adequately budgeted for during consideration of annual budgets. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues and honorable members, as well as our dear sister, the representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who immediately after this speech will also be adequately presented to all of you. Like I said, she had been ready for this for a while, sending messages. There were issues with the public address system, which was what delayed the takeoff. Let me just emphasize that it is instructive to know that the National Assembly has always been at the forefront of championing any cause that seeks to strengthen the National Human Rights Commission for the performance of its statutory functions and duties in line with the principles of social justice, equity, and fairness to the entire citizenry. With the benefit of hindsight, the National Assembly, being conscious of the strategic roles of the Commission, and as a direct response to the global call for repositioning of the Commission, amended the National Human Rights Commission Act in the year 2010 and streamlined its provisions in line with the Paris Principles adopted by the United Nations Human Rights Commission Resolution of 1992/54 and the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 48/134 of 20 December 1993. The Paris Principles relate to the status and functionality of national institutions for the protection and promotion of human rights generally. By the token of the legislative exercise at that time, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the National Human Rights Commission became an independent statutory body and was placed on a first-line charge, whereby its sources of funding became a direct charge on the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation. And by this act, the Commission was granted a Grade A status by the United Nations General Assembly. Furthermore, well, I thought you would clap, but again, I know when it's convenient for us, we keep saying you don't clap in the Senate. So thank you for taking note of that. Furthermore, it is pertinent to state that upon the introduction of this bill, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives chambers, it has stimulated a wide range of discussions among stakeholders and the general public. This was also re-echoed during debates on the general principles of the bill at its second reading stage, where divergent issues were raised on the provisions of the bill, hence the need for the public hearing to ensure that all gray areas are effectively and sufficiently addressed. This will go a long way to facilitate the quick passage of the bill for the implementation of its laudable objective in the interest of national peace, justice, fairness, and respect for human rights and dignity as instruments for peaceful coexistence and national harmony. I have no doubt in my mind that with the array of stakeholders here present, substantial justice will be done to this bill And at the end of the day, the Joint Committee will be better informed on the way forward and self-assured to report back to the respective chambers with its recommendations based on what transpired during the public hearing. In this regard, I wish to appeal to you all to feel free and take advantage of this platform in order to air your views dispassionately. And I assure you that your contributions will be painstakingly scrutinized and analyzed, as they will be treated with every sense of seriousness they deserve and reflected in our recommendations. On this note, it is now my singular honor and privilege to bring the MC back to the microphone and do the needful. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, for the address of welcome. Before we move to the next